we begin with the last lecture of today and the second lecture in the Nimzo Indian. So d4, knight f6, c4, e6. Here we want a simple and good repertory, and that's why we choose knight c3. This move is equally good with the other two moves, g3 and knight f3. They are all three of them exactly equally good. However, knight c3 is an easier line to choose from because black's choices are restricted. He will most likely play the Nimzo Indian. He can play a bad version of the Benoni and the Queen's Gambit. That's all. While after knight f3, for example, he has several systems, at least 4 systems are good and playable. And after g3, which is very good, of course, and my personal favorite, this is a very demanding opening with lots of theory. So knight c3, bishop b4, and we play e3. In the previous lecture, we saw what is happening when black castles followed by d5. Generally, a strategy with a fast d5. However, one can safely assume that black has several other ways to play, and this is correct. First of all, let's find out what is happening if black just comes to play natural moves from his mind. Let's suppose he castles. Yes, we play bishop d3, and he doesn't play d5 this time, after which we play a3 as we analyze. He plays a natural move like this one, d6. So all these ideas are not good, and black will end up in a passive position with few prospects. So white will continue with knight g2, and now black can play all kinds of moves. Let's suppose he plays b6, we castle. We already maybe start threatening such moves. Let's say, give him a break and not even consider such ideas. Let's suppose we play a3, he takes it, and of course we take with a knight. So it is rather obvious that black cannot afford to play such positions because they are very passive and bad. For example, let's suppose that he plays knight bd7. White has at least small advantage. If white is an experienced player, he understands that in fact he has a big advantage. What would you play with the white pieces here in this position that is entirely out of book, of course? Let's start with such questions, please. So, what should white play here? What do you think? Very good. The answer is, of course, correct. White will play e4, and he will have a huge advantage. The advantage is based on our greater space and on the powerful dark square bishop. For example, black pushes here, we will happily block the position, and we will continue later with moves like b4, or maybe here and prepare slowly f3, g3, and f4. Look, this is definitely not our plan because black will take it and gain some counterplay, although objectively still white is better. But our plan is to play very quiet moves, if not for b4, I mean, and control the position very well, and then later maybe play f4, and when black captures, we capture with the g pawn, but we are definitely not at all in a hurry because black doesn't really know what to do. Very good. Let's make another try to play random logical looking moves for black. Let's suppose he plays here. I will briefly check this move, of course, but it's not working. Knight c6 and the bishop is protected. Okay, so we play bishop d3. Let's suppose what is happening if he takes. Of course, we will come to that. Let's suppose he castles. Knight g2 is our plan. And for example, c5. Yes, this move c5 is also playable. But white has very easily a nice small advantage. So we castle. For example, black goes knight c6, and now we can possibly play d5. We can play such moves like a3, And if black takes, I would like to take with my knight, not doubling the pawns. And of course, here we will capture on h7. It seems that white is still better. We are not at all forced to play a3 here and enter such a sequence. We can also play bishop d2. All these positions are better for white because black will either have a bishop out of play after we play a3, or he will capture here and then we will have a nice advantage, the pair of bishops. For example, here a3, he takes it, we take it. One may claim that this position is closed. The answer is, so the knights are better than the bishop. The answer is, it is closed for now. Soon, when we continue playing chess, the position will open, and then the bishop, powerful bishop from c1 will reveal itself. So, e3, we can easily see that black cannot afford to play logical looking moves by his mind. Let me make another effort. Let me try this b6. Yes, these moves do make sense. It doesn't mean that black is losing or anything, but he gets a very passive position. We will play knight g2 e2 again here, and we will castle. Possibly we can already start with this move. This move appears to be good. Black has to take it. If he goes back, then he completely abandons the sender, and white is better here. Much better. By the way, how will white continue after this move? This is a general strategical question, and we may come across such a situation in our games. For an experienced player, this is a very easy question. However, I want to make sure that everybody understands it. So, how should white continue here, please? Very good. White must not play e5. This is not the best move because black will take here intermediate move. We need to force him to have permanently a pawn on d5, blocking his own bishop. So the correct move is, of course, this move already pointed out by some players. Now the d5 square will permanently be occupied by a pawn. And now we will play e5. Most likely he will jump here, and now maybe this is even winning, or we just castle here, and soon black will get a very bad version we can take with a knight. I would rather take with a bishop, a very bad version of these positions. Look, they kind of resemble this typical play. Our plan is f4 and f5. Something is really wrong with black's position. So black cannot afford to play such things. Now, another very important question is what is happening if black, before any knight g2, if black takes here, giving us double pawns, black can take here immediately, or after some move, let's say he castles, we play bishop d3, and now he captures, yes? So here, why did he bother to capture there immediately? In order to give us double pawns. Now, of course, his strategy should not be to undouble the pawns, but his strategy should be a more closed one, to play d6 and c5, because dc5 doesn't really open the position for white, it just causes weaknesses, or d6 and e5. Again, d takes e5, supposedly opening the position for the bishops, is actually totally meaningless. So, what is happening in such a strategy? The answer is white has a very specific setup which gives him a big advantage. Look what he will play. He will play e4 sooner or later and knight e2. Maybe he can start with knight e2. So let's say knight e2. So e5, and it is very important not to allow this move. We will play e4. You will see that this is in fact a very bad position for black, who will soon be left without counterplay. For example, he plays knight bd7, we will castle, and he plays here, he's threatening to win a pawn. This is not going to happen. We can play knight g3, we can even play f3. We are strengthening our center. How about this c4 pawn? Is it going to be weak? Actually, no. Because black cannot attack it more than one time. Black can attack it with a bishop a6 move, but there is no way for a second piece to attack this pawn. And even if he finds some magical way like this, we can defend it twice. So let's suppose he plays c5. Now we can even keep the tension, but this is in fact a very good move, d5. White now has a huge strategical advantage. It doesn't matter that this bishop on d3 appears to be closed. This bishop makes sure that our center is stable so that black is left without counterplay. This bishop is in fact controlling the two remaining pawn breaks by black. None of them is going to happen. b5 and f5. So here, black doesn't really have a plan. For example, threatening this pawn once doesn't make any sense. White may continue by gaining space here. Look, and knight g3 with very good attacking chances. And I can also play this move a4. Why did I play this move a4? Do I want to play a5? Absolutely not. This is not our place, not from this side. What do I want to do, please? Who will help us? I want to play a move that we already have come across with. The move is rook a2 and bring the rook somewhere here. So black has a solid position. Let me tell you, I have some news for you, that if black puts his knight on g6, then, for example, we can play such a move or knight g3 or whatever. Let's say a4. We play all the natural moves. Then two things are happening. Black has absolutely no plan here. However, black has a solid position, an extremely passive position, but a solid position. So white must know one thing here, that he cannot win so easily. These two knights on f6 and on g6 are good enough to control many squares. They cannot move. It's pointless to move them. They don't have a target, but they are there to defend against threats. So here white must play very slowly. He must take his time, maybe start with a move like g3 very slowly. Look, here g3, rook f2, maneuver, and slowly try to win. Another very important principle that we need to know, really very important principle. In positions, please keep that in mind. In positions with double pawns, like this, in the Nimzo Indian, a white knight fits perfectly on e3 square. If white can get this knight to e3, this knight stands wonderfully there because it protects the c4 pawn just in case. It stops any f5 ideas for black. At any moment, it can jump to f5, and generally it stands very well. Even controlling g4 is very relevant and good here. However, it is rare and quite difficult to get the knight to e3. It is indeed rare and quite difficult. So in this position, because we have plenty of time, we can try slowly, carefully, without allowing any knight f4 counterplays. Very slowly, we may try to put it here, or to play something like this, and here, and here. Look, the plan is usually very slow. That's why you won't see it so often, because it tends to be so slow that nobody wants to carry it out. However, I know by experience that if we can get this knight to e3, our advantage increases. So here, black is strategically much worse. He doesn't really have a plan, and he is though solid. He is going to lose for sure, but he's not going to lose fast. So after this, we will play here, and after this, who can suggest a nice move for white? White is better no matter what here, but who can suggest a nice move based on what we have said? I see several good moves for white. We feel it that white is better. So one very good move is, of course, a4. Just in case, I can even threaten this or play rook a2. I see another move. Who will help us? Yes, a4 is very good. I would probably play a4. But I see another very interesting move. The move is knight f5, because surprisingly, this knight can now go to e3 very fast. For example, he plays here. We are not at all in a hurry. We can play a4. We can play rook f2, slowly preparing our maneuvers. Look, he goes here. No thanks. This is not to be given. He plays here. Let me control both knights with these g3, f3 pawns. I like them very much. Look, he doesn't know what to do. He plays, for example, c5. We block the position. Maybe even taking here makes some sense and put a knight on d5. But let's say we block the position. We play a4. And now, once again, two things are happening. Black doesn't have a plan and he's going to lose. This is one thing. The second thing is he won't lose fast because these two knights there on f6 and on g6 are good enough to defend for several moves. However, if they ask what is Black's plan here, to just wait and see. This is the answer. Very good. So if they ask, in other words, why is this bishop takes c3 check move not so good for Black? Because after the setup with bishop d3, knight e2, and e4, most likely Black will end up in a passive position without pawn breaks. There are one or two very good grandmasters who actually play this move occasionally, but they know like very specifically what to do with 100% precision. But objectively, after b takes c3, we will be better with this simple plan. Here and knight e2. It is very important to avoid this move. If white plays here, then everybody with the black pieces will be playing this system. Bishop takes c3 to get rid of all the theories and of all the problems and get a fine position. But the problem is this setup. For example, here I play e4, and here I play, because he has some threats, I don't want to play such tricks in front of my king, such moves. I want to play f3. White is much better. Again, for example, here, now that we happen to have a king in the center, we may even start some attacking ideas like this one and g4 without castling. Again, white is much better. Here, intending, if here I block the center, and let's say g4, intending some nice attacks like this, with or without castling, it doesn't really matter. Like here, white has a huge advantage. Let's play a4. No matter if, for example, here, yes, I play such moves. No matter if our king is here or not, or on e1, it doesn't matter. White has a very strong attack. He will develop it little by little, and he will win. So this is the story why bishop takes c3 is strategically risky. Very good. At this point, I would like us to see one game which made a strong impression on me because I was playing in the tournament. This is a game from the Olympiad in 2016 in Azerbaijan. By the way, let me repeat that this is the best Olympiad that I have ever played. I have played 11 so far. But I failed to play the last one in India, which I heard it was very, very good because I got Corona 2 days before the event. So this is the game between Magnus Carlsen with the white pieces and Hossein Enam, I don't know the full name, grandmaster from Bangladesh. And Carlsen played this first move, e3. This game was played on the first round, if I remember correctly. So e3. Let's see what happened here. Knight f3. Is this relevant or irrelevant with our study? It is very relevant because we will get, although starting from a totally different position, we will get very similar ideas. So d4, this is not our theory, but we are studying this for the typical positions. Knight e4, and here there is this strong move. Now black cannot take on e4 because he will lose his knight, so he castles, and knight e1 is the best move by theory. Again, black cannot take knight takes c2 because knight takes c3 because queen c2 is trapping the knight. So black played c5 and f3. He went back and e4 and knight e8. What will happen after d5, please? I believe we all know by now. What will happen after d5? Who will help us? Let's play this position perfectly. We will take on d5, forcing him to keep a pawn on forever on d5, and we will push here. Now, please be careful. If we manage to play in such a position f4 and f5, this is 1-0. Black may resign. However, whenever we play f4, Black must always automatically respond with which move? If this move doesn't work, he is losing. Which move? f5. This is the typical idea. So we need to be careful because, for example, if we are to take here, then this is not a good position for white. I mean, this pawn now does not belong here. This pawn should have been here now. So please make sure when we play f4 that we have a good answer against f5. For example, here, probably the right answer is to play g4 and not to take en passant. Yes, and white should have a huge advantage. For example, after this, we may even capture or play knight g2, then capture, and I believe white will win very fast. So, knight e1, black played knight e8. White continues with d5 and d6, and knight c2. Why does Magnus Carlsen play knight c2? Because he knows very well that in positions with double pawns, the knight fits perfectly on e3. So if black goes, if he takes it, this is really bad. We will undouble the pawns and play something like c4 with a huge advantage. So if black, however, blocks the position, let's see what will happen. White will control the f5 advance. If necessary, he will even play g4. And here we will play again this move a4, for example, g6, rook a2. I'm sure Magnus Carlsen will find either better moves than me. Maybe knight g4 here, or if we have to, even pawn to g4. Black is left once again in this passive position, yet comparatively solid. So there is a tough game ahead. White has good winning chances, but it's not going to be so easy. Okay, let's see very fast what happened in this game, because this is not completely relevant. Black never played e5, but white played e4. After this, last thing I need you to know, white to play and have a completely winning position. What will white play, of course, here, beyond any doubt? White will play, of course, f5. Here, black can even resign. If I had the black pieces, I would seriously consider to resign in this position, because a very strong attack is coming, not with g4, with g4. And here, and black has zero counterplay. White will soon move this knight somewhere here and play g5 and win. Very good. So I believe we clarified something very important for the study of these variations, which is this taking on c2 now. We go to study something else, please. Just a second. So d4, knight f6. So here, e3, we are studying lines without castling in d5, which was the study of the previous lecture. And this move b6, this move was played by Fischer occasionally, and it is a playable move, a little bit passive, but playable. Now white has two ways to play. He can play bishop d3, but after that, we are not really in time to play here, because he can capture this g2 pawn, and the complications are maybe good for black. So if he plays here, we play knight f3, and this is of course playable, but there is lots of theory here, several setups by black. That's why I decided against it. So after b6, we play this move, knight g2. The idea of this move is to play a3 and capture with the knight. Black plays c5, sometimes he even plays a6. If he plays such passive moves, then once again, after a3, takes, white is better. For example, black castles, and now we may play f3. We are not worried about the dark squares, because we have a dark square bishop and our opponent does not. And of course, we may even consider this move. This move this time looks very interesting. It is scary for black to take here, because he is losing too much time. Previously, he had this move. We had a knight on e2. Now this is not possible. He needs to go back. And now after e4, white has tremendous attacking possibilities and very good compensation. So white will be better. So after b6, we play knight g to e2, and they play either c5 or bishop a6. Let's see this move c5. We play a3, and he plays here. Black wants to keep the pin for as much as possible, because now it's not easy for white. If he moves his knight from e2, supposedly black may capture on d2 now. Usually white plays rook b1, threatening to win with b4, because now black is forced to misplace his knight with knight a6. Black wants to keep the tension as much as he can. And now the main move is g3 here, and there is some theory after this and b5. However, a simple and interesting move for white is this one. I really like this move because, for example, here and bishop d3, black may take here, but in this position with double pawns, black has a bad version. This bishop on b7 will soon be closed after f3, and this knight on a6 is misplaced. Our plan is to play f3 and e4. Which move has sense for black here? Who will suggest a move that has a lot of sense for black here? Let's see. A move that has a lot of sense for black here, before we play f3 and e4, is this one, bishop e4. This is a move that has a lot of sense. Let's comment a little bit on this move. I do not like this move at all. We will happily take it, and here we will reach a good version of the lines that we were studying. Who will suggest two interesting moves for white here? I see at least two interesting moves for white here. Let's see. By now, we know these positions. We know similar positions. Let's see what to play here, please. A4 is one possibility, indeed. Look, this is the way f3, and our plan is probably to play here, right? We have already studied this position. We are losing some tempi, sure, but black will also have to move his knight a few times. And knight g3, and then we continue with f3. For example, here, who will suggest a good move for black here, and then for white, sorry, and then we continue our study. What to play? We have seen similar situations. Of course, not exactly the same, but similar. Who will suggest? Very good. This is a good move to bring the rook somewhere here and try to push e4. It won't be so easy, but black does not appear to have a plan. We play here, this may come here, and g4, and black doesn't really know what to do. So I suggest this knight f4 and bishop d3. He will take here and castle with interesting possibilities for white. Probably black should play bishop e4 and then a move like f3. He takes it, we take it, and white has, I believe, a nice advantage. e4 here, and we have good chances. So this knight f4 is an easier move instead of g3. That's why this is the move that I suggest. So let's check now another game, please. Save. Okay, so let's check this game between Zurab Yavakadze, very strong player from Georgia, and Ostrovsky Andrei. Both players around 2450 or 2460. So by a different move order, they reached this position, and e3 came. So b6, for the moment we are studying this variation, b6. So knight g2 is my proposal, intending a3. Bishop a6, that's the other way for black to play. With bishop a6, we play this small tactic, a3, and now he must take it, and knight takes. And black plays d5. I believe black has to play d5 because we start threatening such moves, e4, or maybe even b4. So he needs to play d5. I remember some old theories where this move was suggested, c takes d5, but it shouldn't be so good. He takes it here and takes it here, and some moves like this and maybe g4, but very extreme play. I don't believe we should play like this. After d5, they usually play this move b3, keeping the tension. Castles and bishop e2. White has some small advantage, maybe even a bigger one, due to the pair of bishops. Black plays here, he wants to put some pressure, and now c takes d5. I like this move a lot. There are other playable moves. Even this move, rook b1, is playable, because if he takes on c4, we have a very strong move b4. Even this move is playable. Let's have a look. If he takes, we have b4, intending b5. For example, here, b5. And here we will capture the pawn back again, and white stands very well. But I prefer this move now, cd5. This is more quiet play. Knight takes, ed5, and white now has a small advantage. This is not this structure. Here we would play, because this pawn on c3 is controlling the center very well. In such a situation, we would play knight g3, f3, and e4 in such a situation. Now the pawn is here. The play is not exactly the same. For example, bishop d2 and a move like queen c2. This is a small, maybe even a big advantage for white, because we want to threaten this c7 pawn, and whenever black pushes this pawn, we will happily capture it, and taking with the knight will give him an isolated pawn, and taking with the pawn will give him parallel hanging pawns in the center. With such moves like here or here, bishop c3, we can claim a small advantage. So we go back. We are still in the study of this move b6. We play here, intending a3. And here, this is what you need to know. Take, takes, and if d5, b3, with a small advantage, we develop our pieces, and at a better moment, we may take on d5. Save. Okay, let's check. Not this game. Let's check just a second. This game here. So with a white has a rating of 2200. I always like to mention the rating, the strength of the players, so that we will know approximately what kind of players prefer these lines. So bishop b4, white is to 2200 and black is 2300. So c5, this is another story, knight g2. Actually, I don't suggest this move here. I suggest bishop d3. We will come to this move, of course, but now it is just a transposition. So after knight g2 and b6, there is transposes to the line with b6. This is going to be our move order, and now c5. Yes? So by transposition, but of course, black is not forced to play b6. He has several other options. So let's study the game. Who remembers the move here? Who remembers? What should white play? This is an important move because it is forcing black to defend. Rook b1. Black is now forced to play knight a6, and this knight is misplaced on a6. So here there is a lot of theory after g3, but I still suggest this move because it is simpler. And bishop d3, very good. This move is not better than g3, it is simpler. Black will soon have to take on there on c3, because this knight is about to go, leaving this bishop on a5 stranded in the ocean. So black will take it, of course, and here indeed bishop e4 was played. I believe this is the best move. If black plays d6, he's kind of threatening e5. I would like to go back with my knight. And for example, he plays here. How should white continue, please? Who will help us? How should white continue? I believe white should play knight g3. The idea is e4, maybe even f4. He goes here. I will happily push d5, and I will happily push e4. And for example, he plays a move. Okay, this is not the best move, but let's suppose he plays here. What can white play now, please? Who remembers? Because we are studying plans here. White can play several moves, but a very good idea in positions with the double pawns is to put this knight on e3, controlling pretty much everything, and then play very slowly f3, g3, and prepare f4. Very good. So here, this move was played, and white took here. I believe f3 is probably a bit better. Okay, and dc5, later white won the game. I believe it is enough knowledge for this anyway, kind of rare variation. Now, here comes a very scientific question, which I will let you answer it. Even grandmasters make this mistake, or they play the correct moves in both cases without knowing why. So, bishop here and e3. So far we studied castling with bishop with d5. This was our first lecture 1 hour ago. We also studied bishop takes c3. These kind of structures, they are risky. We studied b6, and we studied passive move by white, like d6, knight b by black, d6, knight b d7. Here, black plays this move d5. This move is considered to be slightly inaccurate, this move d5 here. Very strange, because it makes a lot of sense. And personally, it reminds me of the Ragozin, for example. But in the Ragozin, there is a knight on f3. So I would let you think for 1 or 2 minutes and collect some answers after I'm giving you this information. This is grandmaster talking now. Grandmaster talking between me and all the students, like we are all grandmasters. So why is this move inaccurate? It's not a normal move. Yes, it is inaccurate. For example, I can play knight f3. Okay, so what? Why is this inaccurate? I can play bishop d3. He castles short. So what? What is wrong with it? Let's think for a while. There is no checkmate or something. It's just about ideas and to figure out if we deeply understood the position. This is a very difficult question. That's why even grandmasters get it wrong. So far, I haven't gotten the right answer yet. Queen a4 check, for example, is playable, but knight c6, and it's not a big deal. The knight is misplaced on c6. The queen is also kind of misplaced on a4. There is another reason for that, a very deep reason, really very deep reason. But we need to understand why. So remember what we said, when black is giving up his bishop for the knight, then he should not allow, which move please? When black is giving up if he gives his bishop for the knight, he should not allow which move? cd5. He should not allow this move. So based on this principle, let's think. It's a deep, difficult question, but it is worth it. So I'm expecting not only like 1 move or 2, but maybe even just a few words. Let's wait for a couple of minutes, just a few words explaining. Or I will give the answer. I'm waiting for 1 more minute and try to figure out what is wrong with black's position. He is not losing or anything, but for sure he will be slightly worse. Very difficult question. We can compare this position to one position that we already know. Let me help you a little bit. We can compare this position to one position that we already know, we have already studied. So I see some wrong answers and I see some right answers, but without justification. Okay, I will give the answer and check it if you have it in your mind. White will play a3, so what? If black goes back, he will be worse. Knight f3, he will be slightly worse. And now remember, when black takes here, black should not allow, which move, please? Black should not allow, we repeat it again, when he gives the two bishops, black should not allow cd5. But what can he do to avoid it? He must take here. And if we compare this to our position, what is happening? If we compare, he will either allow cd5 or he will take on c4. But look what happens. White will not play here and after castling take here and transpose to our position, obviously. White will win a tempo. He will take here, knight e2, and in this position, it is black to move, in fact. He plays queen c7, but in our game, it is white to move. So we won a valuable tempo. We go here, and now nothing works for black. For example, after this, we have already castled, which gives us the right to play which move, please? It doesn't win the game, but it gives us the right to play e4, because we would still have the king here, and this would allow this sacrifice on d4. So this is how the move is explained. After d5, which is slightly inaccurate, we need to play a3, and white gets a very nice small advantage. Takes, and now we will either take on d5 after, let's say, castling, and now we don't have an extra tempo, but we have a good position after this, and knight g2. Or if black wants to avoid it, which he won't do, he needs to take on c4, and then we have an extra tempo. That's why this move d5 is a bit inaccurate. So here we go now. After e3, his basic idea, if he doesn't want to play castle and d5, his basic idea is c5, of course, and this is going to be our main line for this lecture, the second lecture. So black can play c5 in two versions, either c5 immediately, or after castling, which is going to be our move. We have already studied it. Our move is going to be, which move, please? What do we play after studying? We play bishop d3, and now if d5, we play a3, but he can play now c5. So two versions of c5, which will lead to the same position. After c5, let's say he castles in c5. What if he plays this? We will play bishop d3. We will get to the same position here. And let's say he castles now. So there are several ways for white to play. White can play a3. White can play knight f3 and knight e2. I suggest the move knight g to e2, which is in accordance with our repertory. Now, after knight g2, white has a small position of threat. What is white threatening here, please? If it is white to move, what is he threatening? For example, I play this move, which is a random bad move. It's not losing or anything. Very good. White is threatening this move. Black cannot go here because this is losing a pawn, so he needs to take it. We will take with our knight. We may even consider this just for a while, but objectively, this is the best move, and white is better because this bishop on c1 will be activated at some moment. So after c5, we play bishop d3. So he castles, or maybe he can play knight c6. Now it doesn't matter. Knight g2. Now, usually, black plays cd4 and d5. He takes here and d5. If he plays d5 immediately, we have two ideas. We can transpose to this line, look, a3, and now he needs to take it, and we are in this line. He has d5, so by transposition, we reach the line of our first lecture. We know now what should black play, please. Only this move tell me what should black play. He has given up his bishop, so the theory of the previous lecture will begin. Black must play dc4 and queen c7. No other move is good. Very good. So after knight g2, if black plays d5, we will play a3. Now look at this. Knight g2. A very common idea is first take on d4 and now play d5. This position has been played many times. So here there is a famous match between Karpov and Kamsky many years ago, and they played this position several times. So the best move for white is to take on d5. We don't want to allow him to take on c4 because our bishop is misplaced on c4. Can I play this move? Yes, this move is playable, but look, he may take here. We take with a knight, but there is a big difference now. Why? What will black play? Of course, this is a different story. We won't enter this position, which is difficult to handle. So what will black play? Of course, he will take here, and he will give us an isolated pawn. It is playable, but not at all simple. So after cd4, ed4, and d5, the best move for white is, in fact, this one, cd5. And now black must take either with a knight or with a queen. With the queen, it's an interesting possibility, similar to knight takes. Not exactly the same, but similar. We will mostly deal with this move, which is by far the most common. And queen takes d5 will be analyzed in the PGN. So here we castle. We have an isolated pawn, but our knight on e2 may be considered a little bit passive, although it does have some potential. On the other hand, his bishop on b4 is also a little bit random, and most likely he will need to move it again. So here the move is knight c6, almost always. And theory starts from now. By the way, this move, almost always it causes problems for black if it is not played at the right moment. White will happily take here, and now too many random pieces for black. If he takes ed5, then white has a very nice advantage with moves like knight f4, for example. And if these symmetrical positions, they are not at all equal. This is what we are going to master today. And if he takes with the queen, black is hoping, supposedly, to play bishop b7, threaten checkmate, develop his pieces, and attack the isolated pawn, but this is not going to happen. We play knight f4. We have very fast attack, and if he goes here, we are already winning with bishop e4 and possibly d5 here or some tactics. So this position doesn't work for black. So after castling, he needs to play knight c6. Remember this position because this we will get it almost by force. Let's check it again. e3. We are talking now about c5. Black can play c5 immediately or castle and c5. We will get to the same position. So c5, we play bishop d3. Now black can castle and then knight g2, or he can play knight c6 and then knight g2, or he can take on d4 and we take and then knight g2. All these move orders will take us to the same position. So let's say he castles, knight g2. Just focus during the game, even during the blitz game, it is worth it to try and get to a position that we have already studied. So he takes here, we take it. He plays d5, we take on d5, knight takes, and we castle. 99% of the cases, black plays knight c6 here. Let's consider this move for a while. After this move, white will easily get a nice advantage. We will capture with a pawn. Let's say he goes here, for example, and now these parallel hanging pawns are generally good for white. We have many ideas. For example, we can play here. Another typical idea is this, queen c2, because if black plays h6, then at some moment we may play queen here, look, intending queen e4, and it's not easy for black to play g6. That's the problem with his h6 move. So we are here once again, and we are explaining that it's not good for black generally to give white these parallel hanging pawns. because white has good attacking possibilities. One clever idea is this: if h6, we will slowly reverse the battery, put the queen ahead of the bishop, and if he goes g6, now we can play such moves with a nice advantage, maybe even this, and queen d2, because this can be annoying, or knight g3. So white has very interesting attacking possibilities here, and the game continues, of course. Or let's say queen d2, preventing bishop g5. White has a nice initiative, and we continue fighting. Very good. So we go back, and after takes, knight takes, we castle, and we come to the main line, knight c6. So this position has been played countless of times, and it is interesting for both sides. This position is quite different than this one, with a knight on f3. So here, white has various moves. For example, the a3 is a common move. Bishop c2 is the main line and the most common move. But because I want us to determine the play and not allow him to have choices, I chose another very common move, knight takes d5. So this is a very common move and very interesting. Black has two ways to play, queen takes and e takes. In fact, e takes is the correct move. If he takes with a queen, he gets a very bad version of the isolated pawn. We are not afraid of the isolated pawn because it gives us attack, and it's not going to just drop so easily. We will put our pieces in the center, it cannot drop. So knight takes d5, two moves, queen takes and pawn takes. By far the best is pawn takes. We will check them one by one. Let me once again get the move orders. So e3, he can play c5 or castle and c5. I play bishop d3. He plays here. I play knight g2 now. So he takes it. If he plays here, we play a3 again and we transpose. If he takes here and d5, take it, knight. This is very passive, as we will see. Okay, he's not losing or anything, but now this bishop is working well if we had the knight here and he plays bishop to g4. This bishop doesn't work well with a knight on e2. For example, here we have ideas like this and knight f4 and capture this bishop on g6 and get a small advantage or a big one. So black will take with a knight, we castle short, and knight c6, and we take it. Let's check now. So black is taking with the queen first, and black is hoping to play b6, bishop b7, control the isolated pawn, and gain the initiative. But there are many tempi separating black from this dream. The queen is misplaced on d5. The same goes for this bishop on b4, and white has a fast initiative. However, white here must act fast. Let me show you how white should not play. So this is not a bad move, okay, so far. But let's say here I start playing very slow moves, look, and here, totally wrong play. And he has some threats on g2, so I play f3, black goes back, and he starts controlling the situation here. Look, because I played very passive moves, and now, of course, black deserves to be better. Yes, he comes here and he deserves to be better. Of course, he found all this time to move the queen back and forth, to move his bishop from b4 to a much better location, and he developed and he is better, of course. This clearly shows we must act much faster. Let's check some games in this line. So here is one game. The game between Grandmaster Pavel Tregupov and Nikolai Pedersen. White has a rating of close to 2600 and black has a rating of around 2250. This game was played in 2017. So let's check. Knight c3, bishop b4, e3. what is a good way to study one particular opening, let's say this Nimzo Indian, to find some experts who play this line a lot. Usually these players know very well what they are doing and they choose the most interesting and best lines. So you can find such players by investigating. And if you see Nimzo with E3 and somebody has 17 games, it means he likes it a lot. He has spent time on it. So we trust his knowledge. We borrow his knowledge. So he castles and bishop d3. And we are talking about the line c5. By the way, here there are only two good moves for black, c5 and d5. Every other move like b6, it's too late. After b6, we go knight g2 and castle, and we are better. So c5, knight g2. Remember, after c5, knight g2. After d5, we play a3, which is a more interesting variation. So here, knight g2, and he takes it. He takes d5. Just need to remember in your mind a little bit the move orders and also how to remember them. You calculate during the game. He goes here, look, and he plays, for example, d5 here. So what to do? Calculate, and you will get to one known position. For example, can I play a3? Yes, I can. a3, bishop, a3, dc4, bishop takes c4, bishop takes c3, bc3, and here we are. So a3. He takes intermediate move, we take it. He takes here, and we are in this variation. Or instead of a3, I can also play here, dc5, where if he takes here, okay, now he is worse after this, so most likely he will take, this is what they do, intermediate move, e takes, knight takes, and here we are, the second line, right? So a little bit of calculation is needed up until you get very well used to it. So let's check what happened. Takes, castles, knight c6, and knight takes d5, very annoying move. Black took with a queen, and now several moves are good. a3 is good, queen c2 is good, and bishop e3 is good. One thing, though, we need to know, white must act fast. So a3, black goes back, queen c2 threatening this g6, and g6, rook d1. Black's queen is very exposed, and black cannot get his knight to e7. I cannot understand here. There is one question about rook e8, which I cannot understand. So bishop f6 and bishop e4, a very nice, very instructive way for white to gain an advantage. White takes on c6, and this structure is very good. Bishop f4, he could have even played bishop h6, but bishop f4 is good, and black has weaknesses on the dark squares. Black would ideally dream to put this bishop here on this lovely square, but this is not possible. So here and bishop e5, white gain a nice advantage. f6 is forced now, otherwise he will be checkmated. And knight c5, this is better for white, too many weaknesses. And b4, and later white won the game. He played here, a lot of weaknesses for black. And d takes, white could even take with a b pawn, and black has long-term weaknesses with his king. Bishop here, later f4 to prevent e5, maybe even h4. So yes, of course, yes, we cannot explain all the details here because we would still be studying the first game. Save, yes. Okay, let us check another game here, please. This is the game between Yekaterina Atalik and Alexandra Kostenyuk, both super strong women grandmasters, and I believe they also are men grandmasters, both of them. So e3 castles, bishop d3. White has a rating of 2455, and black has a rating of close to 2500. Let's see what happens. C5 here, D5, CD5, and this intermediate move, E takes D4, and we reach this position here, and the very annoying move, knight takes D5, after which E D5 is the best. However, we are now starting queen takes D5. We saw that A3 gives white very good chances for an advantage here, and bishop E3. In the previous game, let me remind you that this move was played, threatening H7, and after this, rook D1, threatening bishop E4. It's not easy for black. It takes way too long to put the knight on D5. It is simply impossible. Let's suppose that black plays here to avoid all the tempi against the queen. White has several ways to develop his initiative. For example, here, and after bishop D7, let's say we develop, and knight C3. This is one way to play, and I'm sure there are several other ways. So in this game, instead of queen C2, bishop E3 was played. This is also good for an advantage. Here, and queen C2, this queen C2 is very important. We need to act fast. So here, rook F to D1. In the previous game, such an idea was used. But rook F to D1 is also good. And here, bishop E4 and bishop D7. How about knight E7, hoping for knight D5? White has several ways to play. This is interesting, controlling D5, and even this is interesting. For example, after this, I believe that we may possibly even take with a bishop. This is a very common idea. Take with a bishop and capture whatever is there to be captured. We capture everything, and now we are a pawn up. We may stabilize the position like this. So let's see what happened. Here, queen D8. By the way, it's not possible here to remember or to be prepared against all mathematically possible moves by black. Yes, this is impossible. We need to remember the plans and play and prevent him from consolidating. Let's see what happened. Bishop here and D5. This is an interesting move. To be honest, I don't like it so much. White for sure has some advantage, a risk-free advantage, because there are weaknesses left and right, but then there are many chances for a draw. Okay, this is another, let's say, very acceptable way to play. White is not really risking anything. So here, and he takes it, and knight f4 to take the knight on d5. These positions can be really deceiving. They appear to be very safe for black, but white does have some nice and risk-free play. So here in this open position, this is not at all equal. White is better. And bishop e3, or maybe even to g3 or to h6. White is better. And later, of course, the game is not over. It has just started. Later, white managed with accurate moves to win the game. Let's study one more game. This is the game between Savina Anastasia and Guichard Pauline. This is a bleach game, both super strong women players. So bishop here, e3. White has a rating of 2350 and black 2400 and something. So d5. Our move is a3 here. Our move is a3, right? In this game, however, white played here. Is she going to transpose for sure? No, it is not sure. Black has various possibilities here. But she played c5, and then they transposed e5, knight takes, and castle shot. Let's see what happened. Knight c6, and this is the move that I like. Queen takes, bishop e3. Previously, white played a3, but this is also absolutely playable. h6 was played, and knight f4. Look at this very nice idea by white. Especially after h6, it appears to be working very well. This is how we learn the position, by studying typical ideas. White played knight h5. I like this move very much. Now ideas with queen g4 begin to appear, and it is not easy for black to play g6 because of all these weaknesses after h6. white here has a huge advantage and black is very far from consolidating. Black played e5. She cannot play this move, hoping to consolidate, because the queen comes here, attacking and causing many weaknesses. The best move according to the computer is f5. And now, in the isolated pawn, when we see f5, it is important to realize that this bishop is doing nothing anymore on this diagonal. Wherever it is, it can be found here or even here. It is doing nothing on this diagonal, so we need to readjust our play with a3 and bishop a2 and put it in this diagonal. In other words, in this position, this move should be played fast, bishop c4, and white is better. You see, if you have any fear about playing with the isolated pawn, get rid of this fear. It is holding you back. It is interfering with your chess progress. One should not only not be afraid playing with an isolated pawn, but he should like it very much. I like to play against the isolated pawn and with the isolated pawn. Generally, I prefer to have the isolated pawn. Okay, so let's see what happened in this game. e5 was played, stopping queen g4, but this is very problematic after d5 here, and f4. In fact, white is winning by force according to the computer. For example, if queen takes d5, I believe this is the move, f takes e5, white is winning, and indeed she won the game. So let's check. No, we won't check this game, this line anymore. We will check the lines with e takes d4. Here is again another game by Grandmaster Tregupov against Monroy Charles with a rating of 2416. White has a rating of close to 2600. So knight g2, d5, and cd5. We can also play a3. After d5, both move orders are working for us. This move order, and after taking, black needs to take on c4 because we are threatening cd5. So this is also playable in accordance with our move orders here, and e takes and castle. So you will choose which position you like the most, and you will decide your move order in case black strikes with 2 pawns. Yes, so we can reach this position that we are studying now and the position of the previous lecture. It's a matter of choice. So here, knight takes d5 and e takes d5. These symmetrical positions are in fact deceiving. White has a very nice risk-free advantage here, and this is why I have stopped playing these positions. I have included one game of mine played more than 20 years ago with Grandmaster Vadim Milov, where I managed to make a draw, but from a difficult position, and I stopped playing these positions for black. They are really annoying. White is pressing without much risk. So knight f4, indeed, remember this move. After e d5, which is the best move for black, our knight belongs to f4. Black cannot take here. This is a bad move because we take on h7, and white has a big advantage. Even if white was not winning a pawn here, he would still be better. So after knight f4, let's see what happened. Black played bishop d6. It is not good for white now to take on d5. There are no tactics here for the moment, and this is the best move. Let's explain here why rook e1 is the best move. Because if we play this move, which makes a lot of sense, black will not take on d4. If he takes on d4, then again bishop takes h7 and white is better. Here white is better. But what will happen if we play bishop e3? Look, there is a positional threat by black. Black has this very strong move. And queen f6 in this position, he's not winning any material or anything, but we should have been in position to play this and bishop e5. In that case, white would have been better, but this is not possible. So we play here. Black is not winning, cannot win the pawn on d4, obviously, but he has this very annoying move, and he has very active pieces, which definitely compensate for the pair of bishops. And if we even take it, this is there are possibilities for black to reach my favorite endgame of all time. Who remembers this endgame? Who knows it? If we exchange all the queens and the rooks and everything, and we are left with a knight against bishop, this is the most famous endgame of all time, in my view. This is the famous game Saidi-Fischer, and I have included this game in the notes here. We may have a look at it if we have time, and I have included two more similar games with this. Two more similar games where white is winning. So this is something that we want to avoid. That's why Grandmaster Tregupov here is playing this move, Rook E1, which is a lot more accurate than Bishop E3. Black played Queen F6, which is theory, and white is better. If black takes, look, this is not the same anymore. We take it, and after Queen F6, white has a very safe and risk-free advantage. He can even take with a pawn, but I prefer this move, and this is a very annoying position we play here. This is not at all equal. We bring our pieces here, and we have very good attacking possibilities and even better endgames. For example, for black playing on the c file is useless because he cannot go to c4 and he cannot go to c2. So we control everything, and little by little we are building a strong attack and, of course, a risk-free game. So knight f4, black played here, rook e1, and this move. But after this move, Karpov lost 2 times against Grandmaster Anatoly Weiser. White takes here. I really love these positions, and bishop e3. Black cannot take, of course, on d5. He will lose the queen. And this is not at all equal. White has a nice initiative. In fact, this move, queen g4, is more or less forced. And look, we play here, maybe put the bishop on g2. And I really love these positions. These are not at all equal, I repeat. Black is threatening, white is threatening knight f6 check, by the way. Yes, this move was played. This move does not exist, for example, because of knight f6 check. So these are not at all equal. White has more active pieces, and what he wants to do, either make some kind of combination or reach some better endgame, for example, with a pair of bishops. So here, white played bishop g5, let's see, and he took. What is happening after f6? Most likely, he will take with the knight, I guess. Yes, here. This is what he is going to do. And here, he will win the game. So, he played here. Wow. And he gained the pair of bishops, and bishop c3, the bishop stands perfectly on c3, and a3, and this is pure joy, a risk-free advantage for white, and f4 with the king coming fast to f2, and I wish all of my games with white would reach this position, but all of them, even the ones that I lost. So save, yes, okay. Let's check another game in this line, please. Let's check this game between famous Grandmaster Anatoly Weiser and the even more famous Grandmaster, of course, Anatoly Karpov. By the way, I noticed here that the two versions of Anatoly are written differently. I don't know why. So bishop d3, d5, and takes it, knight g to e2. And here they reach this position, castles, and knight takes d5. This is what I want you to play. E takes d5 and knight f4. This is still theoretical. Bishop d6, rook e1 is the best move. And black played here and entered this this endgame, which is again a very nice risk-free advantage for white. If black knows everything perfectly, for example, here bishop e4, if black knows everything perfectly and he doesn't make any mistake, he will make a draw, just like pretty much everywhere in chess. A3 is important because this pawn was hanging, and f4 and bishop f3. White does have some advantage. Later, Karpov blundered and he lost the game. And again, another game, a bleach game between the two opponents, again in the same opening, and again, white won. So d5, c d5 is our move. Do not mix this d5 with the previous d5 where we play a3, because here he will take on c3 and he will take on c4, and this is a different story. We have these bad parallel hanging pawns, yes? Every time you need to remember, we will cover, and we have covered all the possibilities. And when you study the PGN, you will see all the possibilities are covered. So you are not called to discover something, you are called to remember. So knight takes, knight g2. If black plays something which we haven't studied, it means it's something completely random, which most likely means that there is a way for white to be better at least one way. So knight f4, again the same story, threatening to take on f4 and queen f6. This is not happening. Rook e1. Black played this, and here again he lost the game. White is very happy with this position, with this risk-free advantage. The king goes there to protect everything. He's very happy with this because he doesn't risk anything, and he is playing for a win. And indeed, he won the game. After this, and he played g4, he won the game. Let's check a few more games, please. Let's check this very good game between White has a rating, I cannot even pronounce the name, it's very difficult for me, rating of 23-20. This is a standard game, and Black has a rating of 23-11. So let's check what happened. c5 here. We take it, and we quickly reach our move order. Can Black play here? Yes, he can, but he moved the same pieces too many times. Knight f6, knight d5, knight back to f6. Very soon he will be called to move this bishop again, for example, after bishop g5. So the position indeed is playable. Nobody said the opposite, but we have very good chances, for example, after rook c1, or maybe some faster play with queen c2. Let me give you an idea. Here we take it. We play rook a to d1, and after this, what is the typical idea for white? After this, the typical idea is either bishop e4 or check and bishop e4. This is the typical idea. Of course, we need to figure out whether it is working this time, right? Another playable move might be d5. Maybe I haven't played the best moves, yes? Here in this very anti-theoretical position, maybe I should simply play a move like rook c1 in order to put the bishop here on b1. Let's check this game. Knight takes, e takes here. So instead of this bishop d6, now Black played bishop here, a logical move, but White is building his advantage very nicely here, and bishop f6, and knight h5 is interesting. Other moves are interesting as well. White can play here. White can play even rook to c1. This is very good. Rook to c1. And after this, rook e8. Let's clarify something, please. Rook c1. Yes, he cannot take here because, yes, White is much better. So let's see. Rook c1. White is not in a hurry to take on f6, of course. Yes, he is building up the pressure, and this is coming. A very strong attack. An amazing game, and White won it. Another very good game is this between Vishnu Prasanna and Narayanan Srinath, both very good Indian grandmasters. So bishop b4, e3, castles, bishop d3, let's check. and knight g2. This is just a normal, regular line, but a very good one for white. And I repeat, easy to learn, and we determine the play very early. This is what I like. Besides that, of course, who wins in this game? In all these games, the one who will play better. Yes, the one who will calculate better, the one who will play the best strategical moves. This doesn't change. So knight f4, bishop d6, and remember this move, rook e1. And black played knight e7. In fact, this is very passive. And after queen f3, white has good chances and risk-free play. This is losing a pawn. Black may consider taking here to remove the pressure, but white is better. For example, after this, we may consider even rook takes e7, bishop takes d3, and rook takes b7, for example. This take, and here. Yes, so we have a risk-free advantage. Even this move can be considered, and black is under pressure. So let's clarify something, please. Look, because I think, okay, here rook takes e7 is probably winning, but look, even if we play something like this, black is yet very far away, but really very far away from reaching the position that he dreams about, this side D fissure. Yes, because white has a much better development. This position has nothing to do with side D fissure. We are a million miles away, and white, in the meanwhile, has very good chances for an attack. For example, after queen g4. If, however, we start exchanging all the pieces for no good reason, then we will end up in this bad endgame. So he played here, but this is already losing a pawn, takes, and queen takes d3. And there is zero compensation here. Queen d7, he plays bishop f4. This is a very typical strategy to sacrifice the pawn and gain the initiative here, because this pawn will reach the sixth rank. And when this is happening, the advantage is very big. So he takes here, he plays d6, and white is permanently much better. This is not at all equal. And then they played, and in the end, white won the game. You will see this game and many others. You will study them by yourself as well. So here is the game. No, here is another game that I would like us to study. Of course, really scientific game by very scientific players. This is a rapid game between Vladimir Kramnik with the white pieces and Petr Leko with the black pieces. Let's see what happened. E3. These players literally know everything, especially these Russian players. Knight g2. This is not our line, however, by a different move order, it transposed. It transposed to a very similar position, very similar. So he castles and bishop g5. First of all, what should white play here, please? Who will help us? What should white play here? Very good. Without any doubt, black is threatening bishop takes, for example, if we play such a move, black is threatening bishop takes f4, and then queen f6, and then bishop f5 with a very active play. Look, here, supposedly white keeps the advantage of the two bishops, but black has very active play, and in the end, most likely we will end up begging him to exchange this bishop when it comes here and bishop e4 or such moves. So this is not the way to play based on the advantage of the pair of bishops, because black has very active play. That's why after bishop g5, Kramnik played this move. And now takes, and here, what did white play? Of course, according to what we have said, he played, which move, please? That's why he even played rook e1. White played, of course, bishop e5. So he takes it and rook takes. This is not at all equal. This is a risk-free advantage for white. He played here. And rook to e3 with nice attacking ideas. Don't forget to play h3 because we don't want to get checkmated on the last rank. And now Kramnik started his magical moves here. He took this. He calculated rook takes d5. It's not good as it seems. So he starts these ideas and back and forth. He has a huge advantage, very passive position for black. He can hardly move. And king g3, white is improving. And f5 is coming. Now, putting the pawns on the same color of the opponent's bishop, which sometimes can be a bad strategy, this here is irrelevant, right? This is, this fear is irrelevant. f5 is a very good move, restricting the bishop. Here, and he plays here. Black doesn't know what to do, very passive play. And let's see how the game continued. White is entering. This is an amazing technical game. And white improved everything to the maximum, and he managed to win the pawn. Peter Leko resigned here. You see, the positions, we are not tremendously playing for a win, but the positions tend to be, they can become very passive for black. Black has 0 winning chances. That's the problem. And they are easy positions for white to play and easy positions for white to learn. That's why I chose them. I carefully chose them. Now, let's finish with this game, side D Fischer, because this game is very relevant. We play the moves fast. So here we reach this position. Of course, imagine this position with a white knight on c3 and a light square bishop for black on e6. It's this position reversed, right? So here black must play h5 and here and put the knight on e6 or on c6, and the knight will go here or to c6, and black will have good winning chances, although theoretically it is a draw. So this is how the game went. You will check it by yourself also. And this is a similar game, the game Levenfish Kotov, where white is playing for a win, regardless, of course, of the theory. They reached this setup, and white exchanged the correct pieces. They played and played, and in the end, they reached this almost reversed position. So when we have d4 and d5, we can always head for this endgame, and white has good winning chances. The one who has the knight has good winning chances. Please be careful, because this endgame is really wonderful, and it can be addictive, which means that during the game, it may become falsely your only focus. You stop calculating and you only think about how to get to this endgame, especially after you study how to play it. This is always let's say, our last hope to win the game, to reach this endgame. Yes, we are not heading for this right from move number 1. So you will see how white played. Let me show you some of the final positions. So white put this knight on f4. Black is moving up and down without any plan. And the situations are really very difficult. Very good. Now, that would be all with the Nimzo Indian. I believe we covered it up to a huge extent. A very nice repertory for white, based mostly on understanding and not on theory. There is a little bit of theory. Of course, the nature of this position is totally different than anti-theoretical e4 first move. Of course, it's a totally different story. They cannot even be compared. And I hope you liked it and learned many things. And if you have some questions related to these topics, I would gladly answer them.